is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue discussion on Shadowrun. We've been talking about magic in Shadowrun, which is a very interesting topic, talking about the awakened world. Let's move into talking about sorcery, or what it is in essence, spellcasting, the casting of spells. Sorcery is the manipulation of mana in order to cast spells. A magician just needs to concentrate to cast a spell. The words, the chanting, the gestures, the dancing, anything like that, it's all window dressing and not needed. Now, spells are direct manifestation of the caster's will, and it's created through formula or inspiration, effectively. Now, a spell could be whatever a character really wants to have it be. They can come up with any of their own, but there is actually a standard list of spells listed in the book that I will talk a little bit about them, but I probably won't go over the entire list, that you can check in the book, and these are the standard spells that you can have. But technically speaking, you can really come up with anything you want when manipulating mana. Now, spells have a number of characteristics I'm going to go over a little later. I'll talk about those when I'm getting closer to talking about actual spells. There are also 5 categories of spells. I've mentioned before that they are 5, so I will also go over what those categories are a little later. Now, when casting a spell, there are really 2 types of spells. Those kind of spells which attack someone physically, affect their physical form, effectively you're doing physical damage or effects to them. And the other are ones that are meant to affect someone's astral form. They're really ones that are meant to target someone's mana. So they are mana spells, they are known as. So a mana spell, of course, targets something's mana. It can also be used on creatures of beings that are of association of being like pure mana. So you would use a mana spell to affect something like a spirit, which is made of pure mana. Now, spells only have one attribute, force. The force of a spell helps determine the effects of the spell and the drain of the spell. Now, when we're talking about force of a spell, traditionally you're going to have it as whatever your magic score is going to be. Or if you're going to write down information about a spell, put it at that. But you are technically allowed to cast a spell at a force of up to twice whatever your magic score is. So if you have a magic of 5, you could technically use a force 10 spell. Granted, there are consequences I will talk about with that a little later on, but for simplicity's sake, normally you keep it to that average number, so that if I want to quickly cast a spell in combat and don't want to do all the math and things like that, I would just look up the basic numbers I've written down. If there are circumstances which tell me to use less force or more force, then I might look into changing it and taking the extra time. Now, another thing about force, it is the maximum number of dice you can use on a spellcasting test for the sake of spellcasting. So if a spell depends on the number of successes you get, whatever the force would be the maximum number of successes you could use. So even if you should roll higher than that, you can't use it. Now, there is a time when this is not included. Edge. Edge dice are not included in this. This is only your basic spellcasting dice test dice are limited by the force of whatever spell you're casting. Now, when I do cast a spell that has a force higher than my magic score, this is called over-channeling. Here's where the important information comes in. When you are over-channeling, the drain you take is no longer stun. Then it becomes physical. So as I talked about in a previous episode, drain can be stun or physical. That's when it occurs, when you over-channel, when you cast a spell with a force higher than whatever your magic score is. So that is the limitations of when it's stun, and when it starts becoming physical and actually harming you to use so much power. So I said there's 5 categories of magic. There's combat, which is spells meant to attack, damage, destroy things. They're all the attack spells you could think of. There's detection spells. Detection spells are made to either enhance someone's senses or to give them new senses that they didn't have before. Health spells, which are meant to manipulate the condition or performance of a living body. Illusion spells, which are made to fool the senses, and of course manipulation spells, which are based around the manipulation of matter and energy. Manipulation spells tend to be the most powerful spells and therefore have the hardest drain to resist in the same manner. Now, to learn a new spell, you either have to learn it from a spell formula, or you have to learn it from someone else. Granted, there are times you could make your own spell formula, but that's not something I'm getting into right now. That's an entirely another can of worms we don't want to talk about right now. We'll just talk about the basic spells, the ones in the book. So formula or from someone else. Now, either way, it usually requires some kind of cost. Whatever source you learn it from, it has to be compatible with your tradition, meaning it either has to be your tradition or one that's very similar to it. Your GM will tell you if it's close enough. Now, you will need a lodge in order to learn your spells. That's a place that you're going to study it and learn it. Now, the thing is, most of the time nowadays it is going to be spell formula going to learn it from. The popularity of being able to find them online. Granted, there is no actual magic on it online, but the basic formulas which you study and then you yourself begin to manipulate the mana to learn it, that's something you can put online. The formula. That's something that can be translated into a way that people can learn from it. So it's a lot easier and cheaper usually than finding someone else, traveling there, learning from them directly. And so the kind of master-apprentice relationships kind of are just going away with how easy it is to find spells formulas. Now, the book gives some general prices for how much a certain type of spell, they're based upon the category, but there are times that these prices aren't going to be, they're just the general prices. When a spell is illegal, or is restricted, or controlled in some way, it will be more expensive in order to try to learn it. And now the thing is, when you are learning the spell, you have to spend 5 karma points in order to learn it. Then you have to make an intuition plus spellcasting extended test where you need 5 successes, and it's a day per time you roll the test. Now, you don't have to do this the entire day. You at least have to spend 8 hours a day learning the spell. Now, failure just means you make no progress. Botch would mean you'd fail to learn the spell. Similar if you interrupt this time period. So that means if you can't spend 8 hours one day, you also fail to learn the spell. At this point in time, you do not lose the karma, but you lost whatever money you spent in the first place. So yes, I bought the formula, but I've spent the money for it, so I might have to spend money on it again. Effectively, it's more than just information, it's materials too, so you're purchasing the materials along with the information, you have to purchase the materials again. That's a basic gist of what it means when you're in your lodge learning the formula, and why you would lose the money and have to spend it again. But yes, it takes a little bit of time to learn a new spell, and you can fail it, but you do not get that karma penalty, which is something very nice about it. Now, when you do learn a new spell, you are allowed to put a limitation on it. Now, what a limitation means is I'm choosing to learn it with a limitation built in, and then I'm choosing to learn that spell hooked to a fetish of mine. Now, fetish is an item that you can purchase as a magician. Well, you could purchase as a normal person too, but it doesn't help you. You cannot cast whatever spell you've aligned that fetish to unless you have the fetish like on you or in your hand, somehow connected to you. So you need that on you. So it might be like a necklace, and you have to have a fetish per category of magic, which means I could have some kind of necklace for all my combat spells, and I could align all my combat spells to it. Now, yes, if you lose the necklace, you can replace it, and then it just takes a little bit of time to realign all your spells, no extra costs, you just had to replace it that way with the money of buying the new fetish. But why would I do this? There is an advantage to taking a fetish. You get +2 dice to all your drain tests when you have a fetish. Ah, see, that's what you get for it. So you've limited yourself in that you need something in order to cast a spell, but in turn, it's a little easier for you to resist drain. So that's it for today. I've gone over most of the basics of sorcery, what it means to learn spells, who you learn them from, what kind of process it is both to learn them and use them. Next episode, I'm going to talk about the steps related to spellcasting that you have to take, and then I'll talk a little bit about ritual spellcasting and counterspelling. If you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe so support the channel, the empire, and the work I do. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.